This changes everything for the Toronto Maple Leafs as things just took a shocking turn. As a brand new report has dropped, revealing some interesting details surrounding Mitch Marner's future with the Leafs as it pertains to not only beyond the season as he enters free agency, but at this upcoming trade deadline. I'm going to break that down and discuss what it means going forward as this changes everything for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But before we get into it, folks, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. If you're a part of the 71% who are not subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Leafs content. So thank you guys for your continued support in the videos and the streams as well. Darius, brand new report has dropped from Darren Dreger. We're now about 2 weeks away, but less than 2 weeks away from the trade deadline. Things are going to really start to pick up here. And things are already taking a bit of an interesting turn surrounding the Mitch Marner. We didn't think we were going to be talking about Mitch Marner and his future in Toronto right now. The focus is the Leafs winning the Cup this year. But things have changed a little bit, and a brand new report has dropped. And let's dive right into it. You can see this here from Darren Dreger, and there's multiple parts of this report, so we're going to dive into them all. But it seems here, seems more likely that Mitch Marner is poised to test free agency this summer, and this is from Darren Dreger, rather than extending with the Leafs, even though the team will do everything possible to push for an extension. Brad Treliving is not bound by the rules of Marner's agent, Darren Ferris. If Treliving wants to, he can approach Marner directly or speak with Ferris to demand an answer and initiate negotiations. Treliving has been patient, understanding the need to keep Marner focused on his game, and Marner has had an exceptional year, contributing significantly to Canada's success in the Four Nations Face-Off Championship. And there is more to this report, but I want to start with this, and we'll dive into a bit more as we go. Basically, what Darren Dreger is saying is that A, it seems unlikely that Mitch Marner is going to remain a Leaf past this season, and B, Brad Treliving wants to keep them together, but now this brings up the question, do they consider trading him at the deadline if he makes it clear over the next 2 weeks that he's not going to remain a Leaf for multiple reasons we'll dive into beyond the season?
Yeah, so I'm not going to overreact yet. I'm going to do that in about a minute and a minute and a half. When I saw this report at first glance, we know the history between Mitch Marner, his agent, and Darren Dreger, right? So this seems to me a little bit of this, a couple of the sentences, almost seems like this is a way for Marner's camp to tell Brad Treliving through the media, let's negotiate right now because we're going to leave, right? Like he's going full extreme here where, it is unlikely he will be a Maple Leaf next season because that's crazy. People are going to read that and be like, whoa, that's crazy. So we know the history there. So let's all keep that in mind. At the same time, I do believe there's a world that Mitch Marner wants to leave the Toronto Maple Leaf. He wants more money than they're willing to pay him. And if that is the case, if they sit down over the next week and try to negotiate a contract, and that is actually the truth, this report is the truth, you have to do everything in your power if you're Brad Treliving to A, trade for Mikko Rantanen, and B, trade Mitch Marner. I know he has a no movement clause. I understand that, but you have to try everything in your power to be able to trade him in the next 2 weeks. And at the same time, get Mikko Rantanen by any means necessary because like I mentioned in a previous video and on our live streams this weekend, it's almost like an insurance clause just in case you do lose Mitch Marner in free agency. So this report this morning is insane. Keep in mind, we know the history between all three of them, Mitch Marner, his agent, and Darren Dreger. So this does sound to me like this is kind of just a shot across the bow, like to Brad Treliving a little bit. But at the same time, if there is truth to this, which I do believe that there is some truth to this, you have to do everything in your power to try to trade Mitch Marner at this year's trade deadline and get Mikko Rantanen.
Yeah, now that begs the question about Mikko Rantanen, about how maybe this is why Elliot Freeman has been linking the Leafs to Mikko so much because he's hearing different things. Dive into a bit more. The Leafs are committed to protecting their core group, operating under an all-in philosophy to contend for the Stanley Cup. Regarding Marner's situation, certainty is unlikely to come by March 7th. Treliving may need to apply pressure on either the player or the agent to clarify Marner's intentions. Ferris has historically preferred to bring top clients to free agency to ensure thorough market evaluation. This means that if Marner becomes a free agent, he can compare offers and to the Leafs and the other team. So now, again, it seems that Brad Treliving, at least according to this report, Brad Treliving is trying to retain the core four, which is a little bit scary depending on how they do this upcoming season in the playoffs, although they do look, prone to make a deep run, hopefully, in the playoffs. Mikko Rantanen is available for trade, it seems, according to Elliot Freeman and a bunch of different things. If there was ever a reason to even go more all-in for Mikko Rantanen, now would be the time, because it seems that if Mitch Marner leaves, we were kind of under the assumption that we know the Leafs want to retain Mitch Marner, but if he's asking for a crazy amount of money or he doesn't want to stay, then getting Mikko Rantanen in at this deadline and then retaining him in the offseason makes a ton of sense, especially if they think Mitch Marner is going to leave. So not only pertains to Mitch Marner being gone, but it also pertains to the Leafs getting Mikko Rantanen at this deadline. I'm sure we'll start to hear over the next few days. Really, I think the first week of March is going to be where things really start to pick up. We know in all sports, deals don't really start to come to fruition most of the time until the deadline is there, because then teams have to put all their offers in. But the Leafs now have a pretty short window to figure out what they want to do. If they are confident that they're not going to be able to extend Mitch Marner, consider either trading Mitch Marner away, which I don't think they're going to do necessarily because of how good the team is doing this year, or trade for his future replacement in Mikko Rantanen. And he also goes in to say that his personal life could influence his decision making. He and his wife are expecting a child, which they announced yesterday, I believe it was, or the day before, on Saturday, adding another layer to consider as he contemplates his future. Overall, the situation remains fluid as the deadline approaches. So it's interesting. Again, I don't think they're going to trade Marner at the deadline because of how good the team is being. But getting Mikko Rantanen would not only make your team elite, even more elite this season, it would hedge your bets if he leaves beyond that.
Yeah, and like the report said, it's unlikely that we're going to get an answer from Mitch Marner on his intentions before the trade deadline because he doesn't have to give that to the team. And by all accounts and everything we've seen with Mitch Marner, like that's just not going to happen. And he has a no movement clause. There's no reason for him to accept a trade. I'm just saying that you have to try your best to at least test the waters on that and see where his head's at. Now, I just don't think that's going to happen. But now I think you have to go out and trade for Mikko Rantanen as an insurance policy just in case he does walk. And I think that Mikko Rantanen would resign. I've said it time and time again in the last couple of videos and on live stream. I think he would re-sign with the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think that he'd be open to coming here and re-signing a contract. And I think you could pay him $13 million or 13.5, whatever he wants. There's been rumors of 14. I think that you could do that with Mitch Marner going out the door if he wants to test free agency. Now, the other thing to keep in mind to not overreact a little bit because we are kind of, shifting back and forth between both reactions, but something to keep in mind is Darren Ferris, like the report alluded to, does this with his clients. He does like to go to free agency to test the waters to see what other teams are saying. Another client of his is Sam Bennett right now playing with the Florida Panthers. It's been very quiet in terms of contract extensions in Florida, as a contending team that just won the Stanley Cup. And it's been very quiet in terms of, a contract extension there. And it hasn't happened. It looks like he's also going to walk to free agency to see what teams are going to offer him. So it doesn't necessarily mean, walking to free agency means that Mitch Marner is going to leave the Toronto Maple Leafs. But I think at this point right now, it's looking likely that he will by all accounts. So it's going to be very interesting because, again, it's a similar situation to Rantanen in Colorado. He wants a number. The Leafs do not want to pay him that number because there's better players on the team that should make more, right? That's just the fact of the matter. So it's going to get interesting, especially with the news of the salary cap going up significantly year after year. So it's going to get crazy these next 2 weeks. And again, if you're Brad Living, do everything you can to try and acquire Mikko Rantanen for this year's playoff run. And then if Mitch Marner does not return, you can try and re-sign Mikko Rantanen.
Yeah, and obviously, Rantanen, we had videos on it. We'll have more videos on it. It would be a very good addition to the team. And yeah, I mean, as it pertains to Mitch Marner, it's going to be interesting. I think a lot of it also heavily depends on how they do in this playoff run. If they make a deep run, let's say they get to the Stanley Cup or the round before even, then maybe the Leafs will be more willing to give Mitch Marner all the money in the world. If they get eliminated in the first, even second round again, I don't know if there's a world where we know that according to Darren Dreger, they want to keep the core four together, but if they have another failure of a year under a new coach, a new philosophy,
there's no way.
Lane Lambert, Guy Boucher's gone, Mark Savard, all these different players that came in, completely new coaching staff for the most part, that would be devastating. So let us know down below what your thoughts are. Things are absolutely wild right now. We're going to continue to keep you guys up to date with all the latest news. Things are picking up, and it's going to be crazy. So make sure to hit the subscribe button. See you guys later.